Howdy. Today is Juneteenth, the first federal holiday for Juneteenth, June 19th, 2021. Kind of a milestone. This is where we are. Let's see. I think that's Morro Bay right there. And on my way up to Big Sur, a very important spot in Big Sur. Actually, it's where the major Earth energy line, known as an Emperor Dragon, it's one of the most powerful ley lines on the planet, crosses the Pacific Coast Highway. That's where we're headed. And that's the reason why I'm doing this live stream today. So tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. on the West Coast, 11:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and 3:33 p.m. a.m. on the in England is the moment that the sun moves into Cancer, which is officially the solstice. And the word solstice means the sun stands still on its, in this case, on its northerly movement along the horizon, and it'll stay still for approximately 3 days, starting tomorrow night, before it starts to move south over the next 6 months to the winter solstice. So I've been working with this friend of mine named Rory Mcqueston, if you haven't heard of him or haven't heard me talk about him before. For the past, we met in 1999 on Silbury Hill in southern England. And since then we've learned a lot about the ancient energies of the earth. And he's a really fascinating human being, one of my favorites. He started out as a geologist working in a gold mine in Africa, South Africa, and he worked underground, like 1,500 feet underground for 7 years. During that time, he was introduced for the first time to the ancient technique of dowsing. And the significance of that has proved beneficial to humanity in a big way. He has discerned, in the course of the past 20 years, he's actually been teaching people how to dowse for the past 25 years. But in the past 20 years, he has made observations of the Earth's naturally occurring subtle energy grid, and made some incredible discoveries. And we've been working together on this since we met in 1999. So, in a nutshell, 10 years ago, there were three major what are known as emperor dragon pairs that went around the world, and which means there were six of them. So there are pairs of them, and they only crossed in six places on the planet, and four of those places were on land. One of those places is Mount Kailash in Tibet, and it's the most sacred mountain to several religions in that part of the world, and for good reason. It's where these two major, so there's four lines that cross there, two pairs of Emperor Dragon lines that cross there. And what we noticed back then was that this was, one of his first and most profound discoveries is he watched, he monitored the all the ley lines in his vicinity. He lived in southern England, and he monitored them several times a day for a year and a half. And as far as I know, it's one of the most comprehensive studies of the subtle energy field of the Earth. And what he discovered was that at certain key times of the year, primarily the solstices and equinoxes, or in the vicinity of the solstices and equinoxes, all the ley lines would vibrate at the same frequency for a short period of time. 10 years ago, that was between 10 hours and 16 hours in the day of either the solstice or the equinox. That has changed significantly, and I'm about to explain how. And I talk about all of this in in the book that I published last year, the Natural History of Life and Death. And he's written and published several books on the subject as well. He's on Instagram. He's under the Geobiologist, and his feed is like a master course in subtle energy and earth energies. I highly recommend you check him out. So there are three major types of earth energy lines, determined by what their source is. The most common and the most ubiquitous, they're everywhere, are the ones that are created by the earth itself, primarily by the core of the earth rotating and causing friction against the outer core and that surrounds it. And that friction creates these low-frequency sound waves that radiate out to the surface, and we experience them as earth energy lines, subtle energy lines. The next order of subtle energy lines are caused by the sun, and there's three different versions of those. Primarily, you can tell the difference between Earth's subtle energy lines by how wide they are, and that width is not constant. But when we first started studying them, we thought that width was constant. And what happened is, let me flip this so you're not just looking at me. You can see something that's kind of more interesting. So the ley lines that were caused by the Earth were back 10 years ago. They were between usually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paces wide. The ones caused by the sun were 10, 20, and 30 paces wide. And the emperor dragons, the 6 emperor dragons or 3 emperor dragon pairs were, at that time, they were 50 paces wide, which we thought was really significant, really powerful. Then something amazing happened. In 2017, another pair showed up on the Earth, and over the next year and a half, between 2017 and 2019, 2 more pairs showed up. So now there are actually 6 pairs, or 12 Emperor Dragon lines that go around the world, with, as far as we can tell, somewhere around 20 different places where they actually cross. The Emperor Dragons don't like to cross one another. They avoid crossing one another all over the world, and where they do cross are, as you can imagine, that's like Mount Kailash, a very powerful place. But everywhere they go, they go all the way around the planet, but they cross all of the smaller ley lines, and wherever any 2 ley lines cross one another is known as a node. And it just so happens, another thing that Rory discovered is that when the solstices and equinoxes happen, there is what we've come to call a harmony period, where all the ley lines of the planet start to resonate at the same, resound or vibrate at the same frequency for a period of time. 10 years ago, that was usually between 10 and 16 hours on the solstice or the equinox. But since then, that harmony period has started to expand, and to the point where by 2017, 2018, they were at the solstices and equinoxes. The harmony period was lasting upwards of 6 days. And what another major and real very important thing that would happen during the harmony period, when all the ley lines are resonating at the same frequency, at all the nodes all over the world, there is an energetic structure that's created where the ley lines cross one another during the harmony period. And depending what ley lines there are that are crossing there, whether they're created by the earth or created by the sun, or there's an emperor dragon passing through them, there's a different character to that node, and a different energetic structure or sacred geometric structure that is that's been observed by people that dowse. And essentially, I guess you could say that it's a vortex or a portal. I'm not really fond of these funky New Age terms, but it is what it is. So what's happened is that in the past, over the past 4 years, since 2017, these harmony periods have been expanding. The energetic structure at the nodes, that during the harmony periods, these portals remain open during that time. And you might ask, like, so what, David? Right? Well, the so what part is that it's if you were to be standing in the middle of that energy, it's very easy to, or much easier to communicate through the dimensional, um, um, the parallel dimensions. So in essence, you've got, the veil between the worlds is thinner during the harmony period, and at the nodes, it's essentially a portal between the dimensional planes. And the reason I'm doing this video right now is to kind of alert people to what's coming. um, so since the three new emperor dragons showed up, 5 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, the ley lines have been expanding in width. So those old, we could say that the solar lines were between 10 paces and 20 paces and 30 paces. All that's blown away. A year ago, at the solstice, this time last year, I measured, as an example, I measured this emperor dragon where it crosses the road, where it crosses the Pacific Coast Highway near Jade Cove, and it was approximately 80 paces wide. And then I was there again at the solstice in December of in 2020, and it was 180 paces wide. I measured it a couple of weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 260 paces wide. So you get the general idea that ever since the three new emperor dragons showed up in 2017, all the ley lines of the planet have been expanding in width. At the same time, the harmony period has been expanding. And when I did the measurements here of the two ley lines that cross, that come across America, they start in Big Sur and Monterey, and they go all the way across the country, staying between 50 and 70 miles apart, running parallel. And one of them, the northerly one, the one that starts in Monterey, goes to Newport News, Virginia, and the southerly one, the one that I'm going to right now, at Jade Cove, goes all the way to just north of Kitty Hawk in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So the significance of this, for me, the fact that this shows up, this new emperor dragon showed up in Big Sur and Monterey, over the past 4 years. I recap all of this, these things that happened in last year's book. 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, Rory sent me a photograph of a node, a place where this emperor dragon in Big Sur, the one that comes up out of Jade Cove, it makes a node on the top of on the crest of the Pacific Range. He sent me a photograph of it, where it crosses a pre-existing node of two what had been a 30 pace wide solar lines, or what he calls a fourth order ley line. And so that node is the first node on the West Coast. And he sends me this photograph, and what he didn't realize at the time was about 100 yards away as the crow flies from that node is the archaeological site that I discovered back in 1994. That is a celestial observatory. It's a way. A way to. It's aligned to the equinox, the sunrise and sunset points on the autumnal and spring equinoxes, vernal equinox. And so it was pretty obvious to me that there was no this was not a coincidence that whoever built that solar observatory, I mean that celestial observatory, knew about the proximity to this major node. And so for the solstice of 2019, I made a pilgrimage up to the mountain, and there's video of it and everything. And I learned how to dowse there for the first time. I'd never dowsed before. Somebody gave me some dowsing rods, and I dowsed the lines where they cross. I figured out where the actual node is, and I camped there for several days. And literally, like right in it, right in the node. And I had all sorts of revelations about all of this stuff I'm talking about while I was there. And I then went up to Monterey, and there's a node in Monterey, and I dowsed that as well and was able to define it. And then 6 months later, last year, a year ago, I went back to both of those places and was able to do the same thing, meditate in the nodes and dowse them and measure their extent and whatnot. And then I went up. There's a couple of other nodes that are north of there. They're not on the Emperor Dragon lines, but they're really pretty powerful and significant. One is on Mount Diablo, just east of San Francisco Bay, and one is there's actually one literally in the middle, in the highest point of Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. A very significant node. It's two what used to be 30 pace wide lines. The most powerful solar lines there are across, right on the top. On the top of this hill, on an island in the middle of Golden Gate Park. Crazy. So for 4 days, I started in Big Sur, and then the next day I was at the node in Monterey, and the next day I was at the node in Golden Gate Park, and the next day I was at the node in Mount Diablo. There's another very powerful node that's in the Eastern Sierra. It's up the 395, literally right off of the 395, near Bishop, south of Bishop, and I was able to find it and dowse it. I think last fall. And the reason I'm telling you this is I can speak about this from my personal experience, that when you go to, make a pilgrimage to one of these places, or even just encounter, like you go and you sit in the line. You don't necessarily have to go to a node. When you do that, you're going to be tuned to the frequency of the vibratory frequency of that place. And once you've done that, you don't actually have to go there again. You can just drop into that energy signature at will, whenever you choose to think about it. And whatever expansion happens at that place, you can be a part of that if you choose to tune into it. So it's not like you have to keep going back to that place. Once you visited it, you've made a conscious effort to commune with that, the vibratory frequency of that location. You're going to carry that. You're carrying that. It's been brought forth within you, and you're going to be able to work with that for the rest of your life. If all that wasn't significant enough, the main reason why I'm sharing this video right now is to kind of put whoever is called to watch it on notice about where it looks like we're going with this. And there is a very profound thing that is about to happen. And it is literally what all the funky new age nonsense has been, signaling for the past, 20 or 30 years. And that is that it's projected that this harmony period at this solstice is going to last for approximately 12 days. That means all the ley lines on the planet are going to be vibrating at the same frequency as the Emperor Dragons for 12 days. And all of the nodes all over the world, no matter how wide, what the source of those nodes are, no matter what the source of the ley lines are, whether they're solar, galactic, or Earth generated, they're all going to all the nodes are going to be open. All the portals are going to be open for 12 days. And when I did my measurement and sent the information to Rory about 2 weeks ago, he sent me this email that basically said that it's projected that these ley lines are only going to continue to expand, and the harmony period is only going to continue to expand to the point where at the solstice in 2024, the harmony period will last 96 days. And when I read that, I just kind of filed it away and everything. And then a couple of days later, it kind of hit me what the significance of that is. First of all, that means it's going to overlap the equinox. And what that means is that the harmony period is going to be year-round after that. It most likely will be year-round after that. And that means that all the portals on the whole friggin' planet, all the earth energy, subtle energy portals on the planet are going to be open for permanently. Well, permanently is for some time to come. We'll see. But even if it's, those portals are open for 96 days, that's a pretty profound thing. So what this means is if you, you've probably got a favorite spot somewhere in your neighborhood or your world, right? Where there's a spot that you just, and a lot of people like to go to, right? That place probably has, a couple of ley lines going through it, and there's probably a node there, right? And that node, when on the equinox in solstices, it actually starts the day before the equinox and solstice now. It didn't used to, but it does now. And there will be an energetic structure that's sacred, that has a sacred geometric form, a three-dimensional sacred geometric form, that is that will be created during the harmony period, and in which the veil between the physical plane of existence and the metaphysical planes will be as thin as it has been in thousands of years, and it will be very easy to meditate in those places and commune with whatever you need to commune with, and whatever needs to commune with you. Ideally, it's an ideal place to render your manifestation prayers. Manifestation prayers that are focused on other people, for the good of others, are the most powerful and profound. So as long as what you're trying to manifest is beneficial to more than you, or by being beneficial to you, it's also beneficial to many. Those are the manifestation prayers that are most likely to literally manifest. And the best place to render your prayer, release your prayer, is either on a line or at a node during the harmony periods. So, as I said, the significance of what is to come is, this is what everybody's been talking about for, in the funky New Age communities, as far as, for most of my life. It's the idea that, the portals between the worlds open up. And so no matter, the way since I've been made aware of this, I started to think about, what's been going on over the past several years. And, politically, we know it's been a very trying time for everybody. And there's another thing, I'm an astrologer, and there's another major event that is happening in the world right now, and that is it's pretty esoteric. Most people have no freaking clue about it, but I can tell you, most astrologers can tell you, that the United States is going through its Pluto return. Pluto takes 248 years to go around the sun. On its birthday is 5:04 p.m. On July 4th, 1776, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And if you look at that chart, you'll see that Pluto was approximately 27 degrees Capricorn. And by, I think it's in 2023, it will peak. It'll cross that point, and by 2024, it will have crossed it for the last time. And so all of this stuff that's been going on politically, and because the rest of the world's politics are tied up with the American politics, the rest of the world is dealing with when we hiccup and sneeze, the rest of the world feels the chill and deals with the hiccup. And so this all this stuff that happened with Trump and Putin and all the rest of the dictators and would-be dictators and whatnot, all of that is a function of this Pluto in Capricorn. Um, if you want to get a sense of what that looks like, has looked like in the past, go ahead and do your research and look at what was going on leading up to 1776. For the 20 years before that, and you'll have it's very enlightening. There was definitely a changing of the guard politically in Europe at the time, and one of the results was the birth of this country. The end of the 7 Years' War and all sorts of stuff I won't go into, but it is Pluto is a planet of divine communion through sexuality, death, transformation, rebirth, hidden knowledge, shared resources, power, immortality, reveling in the great mystery, and sharing out its secrets. So there's all sorts of power games going on. There's all sorts of, it's the ideal. This is an embodiment. This conversation is a conversation. This diatribe is an example of the hidden knowledge being revealed. What has been hidden is now the energy is ripe for what has been hidden to be revealed, and so there's. And another thing about the meditations that go on here at this time during these harmony periods, this is an ideal time to understand where whatever it is that we personally need to understand, whatever it is that we may have been what may have been hidden to us about ourselves. This is an ideal time to delve into that. Recognizing that to do so is only beneficial not only for ourselves but for all the lives that our lives touch. So somebody is asking, do you know a sweet spot near Lexington, Massachusetts? I would guess somewhere near Walden Pond, somewhere around there. There are so many the earth energy lines, the ones that are generated by the earth. They're literally so ubiquitous. Like if you throw a stone, you're gonna be hitting one. Here's another one. Blueberry Hill, but you have to watch out for the snakes up there. So, but Blueberry Hill is a very, it's obviously the highest point near Boston, and it's closest to Boston, and it's certainly a power spot. But there's, like I said, you don't necessarily, because all the ley lines are connected. So it's really you are the most powerful entity in the whole equation. It's your intention to connect that that makes all the difference. I'll give you an idea, a sense. The ley lines are attracted to you. The Emperor Dragon lines actually, and this, the ley lines will move to be around people, especially children. Like they love playgrounds and that kind of thing. The node in Monterey, right across the street from this huge meadow where the node is, the Emperor Dragon goes right through this daycare center. You know what I mean? It's elementary school, and classic. And Rory told me that I didn't make any sense. But as soon as I got there and I looked across the street and there's this daycare center, I was like, well, there you go. We're in the right place. we have always underestimated our own individual power, um, and spiritual power, and those who pay attention to the to subtle energy, which is what I'm all about, is I've kind of made it a point of my life, especially for the rest of it, to do what I can to understand and share what I know, what I discover about the subtle energy of everything. And when you start paying attention to subtle energy, uh, you're in alignment with the agenda, the spiritual agenda of uh, of everything, because this whatever's going on the earth is an embodiment of the, it's being driven by those on the other side of the veil. Like, there's nobody on this planet that's in charge of any of this, okay? um, I understand there's a lot of people that have all this angst about populations, and how we've got um, being concerned about overpopulation and all that kind of stuff. But to me, that's not even, there's no validity to that at all, because what it takes for a soul to incarnate on the earth, there's so much involved in it. There's nothing unconscious about it. It doesn't just happen to anybody. Every lifetime, every incarnation is designed. you know, Souls counsel with um, uh, souls who their whole purpose is to keep track of all the incarnations of this whole soul group that's on the planet right now, right? To discern and help people design an incarnation that would be the most um, uh, spiritually fulfilling for everybody. Uh, and while it may not look like that on the surface, it's designed not to look like that on the surface. It's designed for us to just kind of think that it's all just like happenstance and whatnot. But the reality is that there are no mistakes. The source of the universe doesn't make any mistake with this. This is not just a random thing. It's too. I mean, if you ever want to get a sense, I mean, if you really look at what is, you want to see something that proves that there's kind of a creative design to all of this. I mean, just you know, an eclipse. You've got this little tiny rock that fits just perfectly at this time. Fits just perfectly over this huge, gigantic star. It's just it's and there's a if you study eclipses, you'll see that there's a whole pattern to it that repeats over tens of thousands of years. And that eclipses happen in families, and they at any one point, I mean, throughout that whole period, throughout the whole cycle, the whole planet at one point or another, whatever point on the planet is at some point covered by an eclipse. I mean, it's just, and then it repeats over the whole cycle, and it's anyway. I digress. So I feel I felt like I should probably share some of this information, because I'm that I've been privy to, and I feel like it'd be really great if people kind of spread the word about this. But I I'm not in charge of that. You know, people. I've come to realize that not everybody wants to know about this stuff, and most people don't give a hoot. And but that said, at this moment, there are over 7.8 billion souls on the planet. More than 7.83 billion souls incarnate. And if you've been paying any attention to my feeds over the past couple of years, I have been watching the population for over 20 years. Because when it was 5 billion people, back in about 1995, it kind of dawned on me. It's like, well, I wonder what will happen when the population reaches the same number as the base frequency of the Earth, 7.83 hertz, vibrations per second, which is the base frequency of the Earth. I wondered, I was curious, like what was going to happen. And so as we got closer and closer to it, to that point, I would post, the number of people on the planet, and I would explain this whole story about the, population harmonic. And last fall, we reached that point. We passed that threshold. And I was just amazed, aside from my own personal challenges, with this cancer and everything, was paralleling this thing, us reaching that benchmark. But at the same time, we had the whole Trump thing, we had the election going on, we had all the struggles around that, and it was a lot of fun to watch. That there's no way any of us could have predicted that as we approach that benchmark, that the whole planet would have to go into quarantine, which meant that all 7.83 billion people would have to be spending more time alone, and thus in introspection. Which is kind of how I live. It's very funny to see how the universe orchestrated that whole thing. I was very amused, as you could tell, by how it all played out. And now we're past the benchmark, and literally it was right around the time of the election, and how it was nip and tuck there for a minute, but it flipped. It flipped to the more positive. We had reached a crisis inflection point, and where something had to change. It couldn't remain the same. And so you have all of these, factors, the ley lines, the Pluto return affecting the whole world because it's affecting our birth chart of this country, and all these power struggles, and the Senate being divided 50-50, and it's like that all over the planet. All these different countries, same story. Like Israel, another. They've had 4 elections in the past 3 years or 2 years or something like that, because the thing is so divided. It's so perfectly balanced and divided. So, as an example, and as it happens right now, today, it's a Mercury retrograde period. right? We're coming to the end of it, and the Mercury retrograde Mercury goes direct on the 21st, right? The day after um, the solstice. So uh, the solstice, like I said, is tomorrow evening here in America, and it's the 21st in England, in Europe, at 3:33 a.m. Um, but then later that day, on the 21st, is when Mercury goes direct. I understand. Um, and what people have a lot of misunderstandings about Mercury retrograde period. Let's get another gander out here. Um, Mercury retrograde. Mercury is a planet of commerce and communication and hermetic knowledge, right? Hermetic sciences, hidden knowledge, and all that. Um, it it is the ideal when Mercury goes retrograde. It's a perfect time for inner communication, and i.e., meditation and receiving your marching orders for. Well, the first part of it, the first week or so of Mercury retrograde, is a reassessment of what you've accomplished over the past 3 months since the last Mercury retrograde period, and the last part of it, the last week of it, is getting your marching orders for the next 3 months. Deciding, you look at what worked and what didn't, and then you reassess and recalibrate and decide what you want to do for the next 3 months, what you want to accomplish. It's also perfect time. The actual Mercury retrograde period itself is a perfect time for repairing things. It's a great time to develop a contract, but it's not the best time to sign the contract. Better to sign the contract afterwards, unless hand contract, by handshake contracts are good to do during Mercury retrograde period, but to sign a contract, it can kind of go sideways, which isn't to say that it doesn't follow through. It just may look like it's falling apart while you're going through it, and it doesn't mean that you can't fix it later, but it's a very challenging time for signing contracts. So here we have the Mercury retrograde period coming to an end. It's the solstice, the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere, shortest day of the year in the southern hemisphere. You have this the harmony period going to be lasting 12 days, and today is Juneteenth, and for those of you that don't know what Juneteenth is, it's the day that the Union Army, I think it arrived in Galveston, Texas, and issued this major general issued a statement, an order, a military order, that essentially let people know that Abraham Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation 2 years before, making all the slaves free in the Confederate States. And so, people had been. It's like officially the end of slavery in the South. Officially, I mean, we know that there's still slavery going on all over the world right now, but even in this country, which is a really strange thing when you think about it. But if you look at the longer periods of well, all right. So there is a 24,000-year cycle, and it's an orbit that the solar system makes that brings it closer to the galactic center and further away from the galactic center over 24,000 years. So 12,000 years closer and 12,000 years away, moving further away from the galactic center. We were at the furthest point of that orbit, which the orbit itself is the shape of an egg. So the sharp end of the egg is at the furthest point, is when the solar system is at the furthest point from the galactic center. And that furthest point is known as the dark age, because literally the Earth, the solar system, is getting less light from the galactic center. And the significance of this for conscious beings on the planet is that it's more challenging to be conscious during the darker, the further from the galactic center the solar system is. And where we are right now in that orbit is we're moving back towards the galactic center. We were at the furthest point from the galactic center at approximately 499 AD, at the fall of the Roman Empire. And, that time was literally called the Dark Ages, right? And so things are only going to speed up as the solar system moves closer to the galactic center. And if whoever's watching this, you can look at your own life, and see and sense the acceleration, right? It's like, I'm 63 years old, and I'm telling you that things are only getting faster. The culture is only speeding up, and change is happening faster than it did when I was a kid, and it's not gonna let up. It's only gonna accelerate for the next 10,500 years until we get to that point that's closest to the galactic center. And this ties it all together. This whole reason why I'm doing this. What that means is, in practical terms, is, several years ago, I was in a meditative state, and the universe shared with me, every once in a while it says, you need to study this, you need to look into that, right? And one of the things it said, it shared with me, is that I needed to focus on understanding subtle energy science. And one of the things that was revealed through that study was that, the generations that are being born right now and will be born in the future are coming in with a greater sensitivity to subtle energy than those that have come before in the most recent centuries through the Dark Ages. And the people that were born before now have a greater tolerance for ignorance of subtle energy, for lack of a better way of putting it. So we, in other words, we have it's easier for us to accept and tolerate the bullshit than for the people that will come after us. In every sphere of our lives, from music and culture, the way that we communicate with one another, what's considered acceptable and what's considered unacceptable, forms of discourse. In the future, there will be I wouldn't even have to make this video. People would just naturally understand on an intuitive level subtle energy and the subtle energy sciences, because their intuition is the volume of our intuition is only going to become exponentially more sensitive in the coming days, months, years, decades, millennium, for the next 10,500 years. I want to give you an idea of And I talk a lot. Everything I've said to you, I've talked a lot about in, it's all in the book I published last year, The Natural History of Life and Death. And so I've looked at these cosmic cycles, like the 24,000 year cycle, going back over 100,000 years. And one of the things that uh, is pretty obvious. Let's take a step back. Can you imagine, like, we're in this place where everything is expanding, right? Everything's accelerating. Can you imagine what it was like, what it would have been like to be in the opposite, to know that everything is contracting, and would be contracting for the next 10,000 years or 12,000 years? That would have been really tough. Where people's sensibility to subtle and sensitivity to subtle energy would be lessening instead of increasing. Well, that's exactly what our ancestors have been going through for the past, until 499 A.D. And even then, I mean, it doesn't turn on a dime. It's the past 1,500 years have been pretty hellacious if you think about how much inhumanity has been expressed and manifested. But that same sort of brutality and inhumanity, where people can just suddenly decide, all of this land is ours now, even though there's people there, and let's just go and kill all those people. That all that kind of stuff would be impossible, and will be impossible in the coming times, because uh, what you do to others, you will feel. What you think of others, you will feel. Um, you know, uh, so if you think good things, if you're focused on yumminess, then you're going to experience yumminess. If you're focusing on yuckiness, and judgmentalism and all that kind of stuff about, your life, the universe, and everything, then you're going to be a pretty miserable person. But there's no mistake about that. I mean, if that's what happens, that's because you designed your life to come to Earth to work on that ship. So, and I want to say something about the folks that are the souls that are here that are doing that, like right now, like Trump supporters and whatnot. You know, um, they are providing. They, they're they're holding a space. They're manifesting a belief system. They're holding a frequency, and that frequency is what is being dissipated. Um, so the all the switches don't get flipped at the same time. There is, and I'm not saying this as an apology for these folks, because they are choosing to be ignorant. And what is it they're choosing to be ignorant of? But the connectedness of all things. That whole golden rule thing. The golden rule it's not a rule. It's a suggestion. It's like, if you know what's good for you, you will do unto others as you want to be done unto, because anything else, you're going to hurt yourself, basically, and live the consequences. So, anyway, I think I've been going on long enough, and I think I've pretty much covered everything. I just want to say one more thing. the generations that are coming, the children that are being born into the world now, are sensitive to subtle energy, and they're only going to become more so. There's not going to be any lessening of that. And all of these dictators and cultures that are essentially oppressive, especially to women and minorities and whatnot. Obviously, they're not getting the clue. No one is better than another in the eyes of the source of the divine. And nothing we ever do will ever change that fact, right? We're all equally, infinitely loved by the source of the universe, and there's that. No matter what we do, we're not going to change that. That's just them's the facts. Now we can imagine that we're better than somebody else, and the universe will allow us the latitude to explore that insanity, but the facts be the facts. And where we come from and where we go to after this the ultimate reality is nothing but infinite love, period. And there is nothing more powerful, and nor will there ever be anything more powerful than that. And if that is your foundation, then you got nothing to worry about, right? If that's the lens that you look at everything, then you're going to begin to understand what the heck it is I'm talking about. All will be revealed, but only from that place of recognizing the foundation of all things is infinite love and absolute truth and everlasting immortal life. And that the universe loves the bejeebers out of everybody, even the people that you don't like. Which is a hard pill, because we have this thing where we want to see, if somebody does something wrong, we want to see them, what we think is wrong, we want to see them punished or whatever, especially if they physically hurt somebody that we love, But, there's this thing I keep saying, trust in the unfolding, but really trust in the source of the unfolding, which is within each one of us, right? So, anyway, la-di-da. Hey, let me flip this. Look at this guy. Look at that guy right there. Aren't you amazing? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're good. You're good. We're just loving you. Okay. Thanks, Jasper. All right. So, happy solstice. Happy Juneteenth. Happy end of Mercury retrograde. Oh man. What? What is this? True. Okay. What do you want to do? What do you want? Mr. Love Muffin. I knew it. You had to get that tongue in there, didn't you? Didn't you? Okay. Let me finish this. And then we'll get going. So it's like right down there, you can see, let's see. You see all those clouds? It looks beautiful from up here, right? All sunny and whatnot. They go down there and they're talking like, whoops. We go down there and it'll be like overcast and whatnot. But I love it any way I can get it, So, okay, so my last thing. Where are you? There we go. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for passing the word. Thanks for being alive. I know we're linked. We're doing our best, giving all that's playing itself out. And remember, we love you. Oh yeah, there's 2 rainbow gatherings happening. One is in New Mexico, near outside Taos, and one is near Ketchum, Oregon. Oregon, what the fuck? Idaho. So, and the seed camps and whatnot are happening right now. I personally am. I have my last infusion, hopefully, on the 30th, and a PET scan on the 29th. And then I'll be heading to the gathering. So that's what's up with me. And hopefully I'll be heading across country after that to go. There's a major node in Appalachians. I want to check that out. And there's I want to fly my paraglider on the Cape this summer. So if there's some wind, I know they fly in the winter. I don't know if they fly in the summer, but I'm going to go check it out. Alrighty. Love ya. Bye.